60,000 refugees are pouring out of the famed city of Palmyra, Syria, according to the UN. Overnight, the Islamic extremist group ISIS took control of the city and its priceless 2,000-year-old Roman colonnades, temples, and artifacts. Now, this much territory is controlled by ISIS, nearly half of Syria and a third of Iraq. Syrian government forces and the Iraqi army are both in retreat. Palmyra fell days after ISIS chased the Iraqi army out of Ramadi, a city of 500,000. ISIS is on the offense, its momentum unbroken by the U.S.-led campaign of airstrikes. Ramadi is the capital of Anbar province, where 1,300 Americans lost their lives. David Martin spoke with a former officer who is watching all he fought for lost to an Iraqi army in disarray.
When Vijay Tedesco led a task force of 1,000 men and women into Ramadi in the spring of 2006, it was probably Iraq's most dangerous city.
There was nothing but al-Qaeda in Iraq. They had created a very dense and very sophisticated defense in depth, using massive amounts of IEDs and everything else.
Now retired, Tedesco says his task force lost 14 tanks, but tanks can be replaced.
In 9 months in Ramadi, we lost 17 soldiers, Marines, and sailors operating in my task force or in the areas I controlled, and we had more than 100 wounded.
Sergeant Terry Lisk was killed by a mortar round, Sergeant Nicholas Gibbs by a sniper. But after 9 months of fighting, they had something to show for their sacrifice.
When we left in February of 2007, there were areas of the city that you could move freely about in that were unimaginable 9 months before that.
A year later, there was even a Ramadi soccer tournament. Now those hard-won gains have been wiped away by the inability of Iraqi troops, backed by American airstrikes, to stand up to ISIS, the successor to al-Qaeda in Iraq.
When you talk to soldiers in your battalion who were wounded, what do they say now?
There's a lot of bitterness and a lot of pain.
Tedesco himself feels a tangle of emotions: sadness, resignation, and anger.
Just legitimate anger.
Anger at?
And this is going to sound terrible, but frankly at politicians, both here and in Iraq.
On Memorial Day, Tedesco is going to Arlington National Cemetery to stand at the grave of Specialist Andrew Dahl.
I'm going to run into the mothers of other men and women, many of whom died in Ramadi and Anbar about the same time, who were buried around him. And it's going to be hard this year.
Tedesco lost 17 in his task force. A total of 83 Americans were killed in Ramadi during the time he was there. David Martin, CBS News, The Pentagon.